Good evening. My name is Emmanuel, and today I'm here to present to you on the global statistics on water, especially in developing world. But I'll look at an outlook of a world's overview. Then I'll look at a tailored version of the Sub-Saharan Africa, which seems to be the worst in terms of clean water accessibility and sanitation services. Now, to start with, quickly, let me mention that as a member of the presidential team to help with briefing that will come up next financial year, I will start by saying that in the first place that sanitation and water continue to be overlooked. While international aid has been rising steadily in the mid 1990s, the share of water supply and sanitation has decreased since that time. In 2006, total aid flows to the sector reached 6.3 billion. The 2006 Human Development Report argued that aid flows should rise by 4 billion each year. However, the figure is underestimated since it does not take into account the cost of maintenance and rehabilitation of existing facilities. So, from this perspective, it even tells us that indeed, although there is more challenge to be done, there is very little investment that has been going on here. And Mr. President, again, you need to take into consideration the fact that when it comes to the water and water accessibility, we've realized that areas or places or regions that have very high corruption turn out to have very low quality of water in terms of um, government officials not being committed to making sure that so many people have pipe-borne water in terms of households. These are challenges that are being met out in terms of households not getting water. We've seen that areas that are highly prone to corruption are also likely to have a high number of people not having pipe-borne water connected to their homes. So of course, there is that connection, there is that connectivity between, and it makes sense that yes, if people are corrupt, if people are putting all sorts of flimsy excuses which deters them from working, then we should expect that indeed we would that indeed we would have, that indeed we would have several people having such challenge of get accessing clean water. Now, the challenge also has been that it has been proposed that we'll have a 4 billion annual increase. Unfortunately, even we don't have a 1 billion for even 2 years, because if you look at the statistics since mid 1990s to 2006, and all through we have the 6 million. So it means that technically 2 years we will only have $1 billion allocation, which is a greater challenge. However, there have been again and again, the statistics around the world is such that when you look at the world, you realize that it is the Asia part, the western part of Asia, and the sub-Saharan Africa that are the most deprived in terms of having clean accessibility to water, and that has been a great challenge. Now, we realize that as the state, you realize that for other sectors such as health and education, although they are highly dependent on sanitation and safe water, they fail to recognize the interrelationship between these three essential services. So you realize that they keep pushing money into health, pushing money into education, but sanitation and barrier, these are the fundamentals that will make these sectors invariably see much impact as well. So we realize that again, whilst Norway, UK, Canada, US, Sweden, Spain, and France, and such advanced countries are seeing very high number of people accessing clean water, and it's not so in the sub-Saharan Africa, especially talking about Ghana, where in the northern region, so many people do not have access to clean water. So many people have to walk for a very long distance, according to the UN DP policy on water accessibility. It states that no one should commute 5 kilometers before accessing water. And so it means that if someone commutes 5 meters before accessing water, then such person does not have accessibility to water at all. However, if you come to Ghana, if you go to Nigeria, Sierra Leone, these people trek for more than 10 kilometers for water. People trek, yes, people trek more than 7 kilometers, people trek more than 8 kilometers just for water. So this has been a challenging situation. However, governments all over the world have failed to recognize that indeed the welfare of the people, be it education, be it in health, is highly dependent on sanitation and water. And one thing that we've also realized that the synthesis between the sanitation policy and sanitation implementation has been so diverse, leaving a lacuna in the middle, in the sense that people, of course, countries come in with very good policies, but when it comes to the implementation of such sanitation policies, it becomes very, very disheartening. Recently, in the world, the commitment of some INGOs such as World Vision, Water Aid, and a few of them has led to the pushing of water and sanitation very well. Now, we realize that despite frantic efforts being made, of course, we can say that they've done very well in promoting water, but when it comes to sanitation, we still have very dwindling figures, which is quite disheartening. And again, you realize that um, for the past 5 years, again, in terms of investments that we talked about a 6 billion investment from the mid 1990s to 2006 again, and we talked about the fact that that investment was for the entire world. But if you look at it critically, you realize that none of the investments made were in sub-Saharan Africa. So then it explains the fact that indeed, as of now, we should be getting such disheartening figures. Now, you realize that again, that overall aid is rising, but the share, as I stated earlier on, the share of water is declining, and it has been a challenge. In recent times, again, it has also got to do with impact stories. To what extent can water and sanitation give an impact story? And this will go to the INGOs because they think investment into such a sector will not give very touching stories that they want to portray out there. So it has been much of a great challenge, and this is how it looks like globally. One key issue I would also want to raise is about the fact that now, when we even talk about accessibility, we now move to the next step of talking about the quality of the accessibility. And in looking at the quality of the accessibility, we would have to look at in which countries are also facing challenges in terms of getting accessible clean water, and that has been a challenge. And again, when we look at these trends, you realize that the sub-Saharan Africa is still lagging behind. The water and sanitation sectors are among the weakest performing MDGs within, with sanitation trailing further behind. But they are also sectors integral to the progress made across all MDGs, most notably gender equity in primary school enrollment and reducing mortality rate of children under 5 by 2/3. The critical weakness in water and sanitation are down to failure of leadership. And that is why I stated that in areas that we have high levels of corruption, it is likely that we'll have very weak sanitation and water and sanitation improvements. Now, the international development communities must now urgently constitute the necessary high level bodies that can target human, technical, and financial resources at areas of critical failure. Now is the time to build an integrated and accountable approach to development. Without a framework for action, we will continue to see unbalanced financial inputs in perverse developmental outcomes. Not only in progress against sanitation and water targets are likely, there is also a genuine risk that many of the goals, that is the MDGs, will not be met. Tier Fund and Water Aid, Tier Fund, Water Aid, and World Vision, and among other international development organizations, are calling on governments to urgently tackle the crisis by agreeing on a global framework for sanitation, which includes number one, and these are of course my recommendations. Number one, we'll look at the annual review of the sector. That we should have an annual consistent review of the sector. It should be seen as an integrated body in the sense that the world should pursue this together, such that we know where to channel resources to, where not to, where to do more monitoring, where to do more performance appraisals and that kind of thing. When it comes in, at least it helps in solving that issue. Now again, we should also have the annual high level meeting, and we should also look at the commitment that no credible national plan should fail for lack of finance. That means that investment or funding should be made available for this particular sector consistently. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a few I want to talk about for an outlook into the world. So, from the outlook into the world, it is clear that indeed very little investment has been made, and as we see, if we don't put in much more impressive impacts or impressive efforts, then certainly would have sanitation being dwindling more than the state it is now. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. God bless you.